What's up? It's Mike Finoia from Comes a Time, letting you know that Oteil and I are going to be bringing the podcast to Patreon. Each week, we are going to provide members with a bonus episode. And what we talk about is going to be up to you. That's right. Members can send in their questions, stories, topics that you'd like to hear Oteil and I chat about, and we'll shout you out and take your questions each week. You got to make it a good question, though. If it's what's your favorite Dead song, we might skip that one. So do better. We have faith in you. Head to patreon.com/comesatimepod and get on the bus. Hey, I'm Mike.
And I'm Oteil, and welcome to the Comes a Time podcast.
And today on the podcast, we have one of my very good friends, a stand-up comedian. I love him. Tom Papa is on the podcast. We have a great chat. We're excited to share it with you guys.
And remember, Comes a Time is part of the Osiris Media family. You can catch all the Osiris podcasts on osirispod.com.
And as always, folks, head over to iTunes and rate and subscribe and review and share it with your friends. And thank you guys so much for listening. And enjoy Tom, and we'll see you next week.
Comes a time when the blind man takes your hand, says, "Don't you see?"
What's up? I'm Oteil.
And I'm Mike, and welcome back to Comes a Time podcast.
Today we got one of my big heroes, Mr. Tom Papa, amazing comedian. I'm a huge fan. Thank you for doing this with us, man.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to see you guys.
Hi, Tom.
Hi.
Good to see you, buddy.
Likewise.
We were just talking about bombing.
Ooh, that's fun.
Now I miss doing it. We were talking about how you get confidence for a joke and then you go for it when you're feeling comfortable in between a couple of them that already are working.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize, oh, that's far from ready. You get kicked right back in it.
Yeah, it's amazing how difficult it is to just be comfortable with that. Like after years and years and years, it's still that primal feeling of rejection from the herd. It's a terrifying thing. It's weird. Yeah. I always think like I should take more risks and be more confident, and who cares? But you do care. You do. It's hard to push that aside.
Yeah, it really is. And it's like that forgiveness of being able to go like, this doesn't matter. These people are never going to be in a room together ever again. So
I know, and especially in New York, like where we work, there's always someone in the room. There's always someone in the room.
It's so true.
And from someone on the wait staff to the manager to somebody who's from the New York Times. I mean, the range is huge and subtle, maybe it doesn't mean anything, but if someone has never seen you before, it kind of does mean something. I don't know. Yeah, you should be more fearless, though, for sure.
Do you think you get to a point later on where you don't care? Because sometimes I always marvel at the people like Andy Kaufman that could just take the most uncomfortable thing and then just like highlight it almost and make it worse. Or
Yeah.
Fearless.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I think we should realize that we always think that it's got to be in the moment. Every moment's got to be like this high note. And a lot of times when I watch people, I like the in-between stuff. I like watching them just take a breath or check their watch or get a glass of water or sit there and think. Like those things, we forget that those things are just as intriguing to watch. Yeah, but it's hard when you're up there. You feel like, you're dealing with energy and you know what's going to happen to that energy. And like Andy would do that, but he cared. He was just messing with that energy in a different way. But yeah, I don't know. It's pretty complex, but I always feel like I should be more fearless.
there is that thing of patience where it's like you start to appreciate the notes you don't play. and letting
Yeah.
it sit. And there's certain comics. Ted Alexandro is one that I always like would really pay attention to the fact that he would like almost touch every part of the wall and like take his time. It was like he was tuning up
Yeah,
in
yeah.
between jokes, and you're right. Like people do really appreciate, you forget that you're performing after a while.
Right, exactly. I'm doing a show tonight. I put together a socially distanced show in LA. We're only going to have like 15 people in the audience.
Oh wow.
But all the comics are just like, I have a show tonight. Like I haven't done this since March. Like I haven't. Everyone's like anxious that they've got to actually be up there. So it's kind of cool. So I doubt tonight I'll be fearless.
Yeah. I had to do my first show since March 12th, 3 weeks or so ago. And it was an outdoor show at Fairfield Comedy Club in Connecticut.
Oh,
and it was a socially distant thing, and we're all outside. And I had to go back and listen to a headline set from like Burlington, Vermont in late February.
Yeah.
To remember jokes. And I felt like my setups were from like the 1800s, and I like wrote them with a quill pen. Doesn't it, like, it's like some of the stuff that we like.
Flying.
Yeah, remember being in a cab.
Yeah, I know. I did the same thing. I've done a couple things on the road, and I just played it and just let it go. And a lot of it holds up. You kind of feel like the world has shifted to such a huge degree, but then once you're up there, you're like, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fairfield, Connecticut. That is a comedy mecca.
Oh, it's the new West Village. It's amazing. People come out. It's BYOB. Everybody's passing around, bug spray and whatever else. And it's, you did it, and you traveled to Salt Lake, right? Didn't you do
Salt Lake City and Portland, Oregon?
Wow.
I did one in July and one in June.
Were you bugged out with traveling?
Not really. Put on a mask. It feels a lot safer than it did in March when I was flying around with people sneezing next to me and everyone's old-timey disgustingness. This was like people were wiping stuff down and boarding in the right way, and I really knew everybody was dialed in when the bell went off when we landed, that we had at the gate, and everyone just stayed seated, and they waited like at church for the people in front of them to go. I was like, all right, people are doing their best here. This is okay. Yeah, no, I felt okay. I felt, people are so disgusting. I mean, it's why we're in this state now. People were so horrible. And it's pretty empty too. It's not really that packed right now. Like when we landed in Portland, our plane was one of only 3 that were at the gates. There was just empty.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty wild.
I'm guessing you're not coming down here to Boca Raton, Florida.
Oh man, I don't know. Here. Yeah, I was supposed to be there, and I think they're rescheduling it.
Yeah, I was so looking forward to seeing that because I was desperate, and there was some comedy club that was open. I think it was me and my wife's anniversary that we got to make up, and get up there, and I saw your name on the schedule. I was like, what? Like, that was my house, and then it's like, wah, wah, wah.
I know. It's like every plan we have is just, we still can't, like, I feel like we're all like dating the same person who keeps blowing us off. It's like, well, how about next week? And like, no. Well, okay, I'll see you in September. No.
I'll text you in late August and let you
know. Yeah.
It is it's so weird. And it's, I don't know if you felt this too, but like when like this thing first started, my body was almost like, thank you. Like it was almost like a microcosm of how the earth is probably like, thank you, because not so many planes and whatever. Like it was so nice to go to bed at like a normal hour and not have that, like, why am I not still out? I mean, like leaving the club and leaving the hang and leaving the table and going home to my apartment in Queens, I'd lay there and be like, I left too early. Something awesome's going to happen. I missed out.
Yeah.
This was kind of like, oh, cool. I can go to bed at 8:00 and no one cares. Like, I don't have to hear tomorrow.
I know. Everyone's been pushed into retirement. I have I talk to a lot of comedians on my radio show, and when things do return, there's going to be a group of them that don't come back. There's going to be people who just saw a different life and they're going to take it. There's going to be people, excuse me, who go back hard, but there's going to be a lot of people who are just kind of reconsidering, what was I doing? Why was I going so crazy? Why was I working so hard? If financially they can make it in some way, there's going to be room on the schedule, I think.
There's room for bargaining with that too, because I always find as I get older that time ends up being worth more than money.
Yeah.
When you have more of your time and you're like, hey, wait a minute, like I actually found a way to pay my bills, so what was I doing before?
Yeah.
And, I think if you can balance it out, I really wanted a break. And I wasn't working that much, but still, it's like, okay, yeah, this is enough of a break. Like,
yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, no, that was good. I know it doesn't take much to kind of re-energize and be like, all right, now it's time to go. It is pretty sweet. Like, I checked into a hotel in Portland, and I came in at like 11 o'clock in the morning, and you always have that stress. All the old stresses are kind of got, like, you would walk in and be like, oh, okay, they're going to tell me, well, check-in's at 4. We don't have any. Let me see if you have something. Well, come on, I've been traveling the whole. Okay, well, nothing's ready. Check-in's at 4. Sit in our lobby
if you want it.
This time they were like, have your pick. You're the only one here.
You got your own floor.
Got my own floor. I'm just cruising through the airport. I could do anything. I mean, it was like, oh man, maybe it was too much. Like, I would be psyched if people retire from all walks of life. Things were just too big and too packed and too many people moving around and doing. It was like, this is kind of closer to what life should have been.
For sure.
In a way.
Traffic alone. I mean, especially in big cities like, LA,
oh God,
New York, it's just like the traffic. It's just seeing the skylines, like being able to see.
The sharks are back.
Yeah, that's when
Southern California, it's like they were saying that because there's no cruise ships and there's fewer people boating and stuff, that there's stingrays have repopulated, and that's retracted the sharks, and the oceans are like alive again.
Yeah,
and it's like, it's
that.
like, I know, eat those people.
Decrease the surplus population.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is so funny how, like, I always said, like, if I could pull Vermont like just a little bit closer to Manhattan, everything would have been like, why did New York City and LA have to be the mecca of comedy? Why couldn't it be like Ann Arbor, Michigan, or wherever the hell up near a lake where we could all have a big cabin and we can go have bonfires afterwards and talk? And that's what we need.
Not enough people. No, I know. Everyone's fantasizing about it. I have it on my phone. I follow on Instagram. I have, all of a sudden I have, I'm canceling comedians who are annoying and just keep posting nonstop, and I'm replacing them with cabin accounts. I just keep looking at cabins in strange places and fantasizing about just sitting in one for the rest of my life. No, but there are comedians that do that. There's comedians that went to Maine or like Buffalo or Nashville. Nashville's a little on the bubble. That's still kind of near show business in an airport.
Yeah, true. True.
But once you do that, you're kind of checking out. You're like, well, all right, I'll sell out 2 times a year in Bar Harbor. But the rest of it, and that's okay. That's all right if that's if you want to go fly fishing and hang with your kids or whatever. Everyone always thinks about Vermont. Vermont is like another cabin fantasy.
Vermont's the best. Dave Attell calls it the Las Vegas of Maine.
Yeah.
I had an interesting, like, the last 7-8 years, my wife lived in Connecticut and I lived in Queens.
Mm-hmm.
And I had like a dual life where I was able to, like, with writing for the TV show and doing comedy, I would be in the city and then I'd take a couple nights off, pack my bags, move out of New York, go back to the woods, kind of reset get my bearings, do my laundry, and then go back. And it was like every time I'd go over that bridge and go back into the city, it was like I would hold my breath and just like do as many spots and do as much work and meetings and all that, and then book out again. And, so this has been interesting because I've had to learn how to relive with my wife. Like when COVID hit, I was like, I got to go to, be with her. She's a nurse.
Yeah.
Different
How
living
is
with
it?
your wife. It's taking some getting used to.
Yeah.
I love it, but I'm also like, I see why what we did worked. You know what I mean? Like we were able to kind of be out of our marriage was very like a business agreement where it was like, yep, you're going to follow your dream. I'm going to follow mine, and we're going to do it together and we'll keep each other in, tabs along the way.
Right.
So this is kind of cool. It's like I'm getting to know her.
Yeah. And waiting for the show to start again.
Waiting for another apartment in Queens to rent.
Did you give up your place?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Wow.
I had to. I mean, I couldn't afford. I was paying for a place I didn't go to. I left there. The last show I did was at the Cellar March 12th.
Right.
And I didn't go back to New York till I moved out of that place. I went in multiple masks and got out of there.
I was talking to Mateo Lane, the very funny comedian, and he has a new place in the West Village that he could never afford before because so many people just split, and they didn't even, they're all furnished because people just went back to Australia or back to Europe, and they just, thousands and thousands of people just are gone from the city. So strange. Yeah. I know.
All the surrounding areas are all gobbled up, though. If you go up into Westchester or Southern Connecticut, like all the New Yorkers were like sight unseen, buying up and renting houses everywhere. So.
Tom, have you been enjoying more time at home with the family?
I have. I was like, oh, this is a nice place. I see why you all enjoy it.
When I got hip to you, it was with my wife at the same time that we found you, and we had just been together without kids, and then got pregnant and crossed over into having our first son. He's 5 years old now, and I think the first thing of yours I saw, a lot of it was about marriage and kids and the before and after. So I was just like, man, you were just hitting bullseyes with every freaking joke,
Yeah, hitting it at the right time.
Yeah, it's so I think about a lot of those things now that I'm home all the time with kids.
Yeah,
I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Oof.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exhausting. It's so much. I can't believe the amount of work that is. That is so much work. It's nonstop. It's harder than anything you could do on the road by far.
By far. You just think, wow, this creature is only like, 20 pounds.
And so needy.
The energy level is just constant, and I'm an older dad, so that's the only reason that I would prefer to be a little younger, is just have more energy. I was just too friggin' stupid when I was young,
Yeah. Are they boys?
The boy's 5 and the girl's 2, and she's like a brigadier general. We adopted her from India. People are like, oh, how's she adjusted? I'm like, adjusting? She's like, oh, I have 2 slaves. This is great. We can reach everything. It's just constant, just whip cracking. So I have to
There are entire years I don't even remember from that period. Where I see photos and I'm like, when were we in Disney? I don't remember this at all. It's just so intense.
You guys make it sound so alluring, really.
Oh, I mean, it's nourishing and it's all that good stuff, but it is. Yeah.
You're in a house.
It's like getting to see their computers boot up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like you get a little miracle every day. Like they figure out something else, or they,
Yeah.
That part's legitimately great. And I think there's something in there where they were created to be just absolutely irresistible about 20% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It just washes away all that, They just give you a big glowy smile or do something cute, and it can just wash away like 4 hours of torture.
Yeah, it's really true. And that now mine, I have one that's on her way out. That's going to college. We're going to be flying back east and doing that next week.
Oh wow!
And then the other one is, and those computers, they just become super powerful, and then they start pointing out all the flaws with your computer. They're like,
update your software, Dad.
Did it just take you 2 minutes to find the exit button on the remote control? You're slipping. I got it. I'm all right. I've still got it.
I'm taking my time. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
How many do you have? How old are they?
15 and 18.
Oh wow.
Yeah. In the
boys, both girls.
Yeah.
All girls. It's Tom and the girls, right?
Yeah.
So
all ladies.
I hear that 12 years old with the girls is where you really like it. Just
yeah. One was kind of like that. One was pretty textbook, but she seems to be mellowing out a little bit now. But yeah, it's just right out of the brochure. It's so funny how we try and think that we're such individuals and we're so unique, and it's like, nope, you're exactly the same as everybody else. That family is going through exactly the same thing. Their kid said the same thing. Their parent reacted the exact same way that you just did. It's pretty funny how how it's just there's a blueprint and you can maybe change it on the edges, but the thrust of it, forget it.
Everything. I'm just like, God, I've turned into my mother. It's like my constant. I keep coming back to that. It's like, you say the same shit your parents said. They're just not old enough for. Get the old, I'm not kicking your ass anymore. Life's gonna kick your ass. That's what my mom used to tell me.
Right. Yeah, it just blurts out. I know.
You said that to them now. They just throw juice on the ground and run in the other room. So,
yeah, exactly.
Wait till that hits. Tom, when you come back east, are you gonna go to? Are you gonna head into the city at all, or are you gonna try to stay out of?
I only have one day that I can see that's possible. There's like one afternoon where my wife's gonna be busy, and I can skid her in from New Jersey, and I'm not sure if I'll be able to pull it off. I'd like to. I mean, I'm hearing such conflicting things.
Yeah.
I talked to some people, from the cellar and comics that are down there, and they're like, oh, it's like Europe, all the tourists are gone and we're just sitting at cafes. And then I talked to my friend yesterday who lives in the Upper West Side, and they're like, it's Armageddon. They just filled up the hotels with homeless people and ex-convicts from nonviolent crimes, and they're just masturbating in the streets, and they're running around naked, and you can't even live in the neighborhood anymore. And you don't want to walk down the side street. So I'm like, what's the real deal with New York? It's my home. I'm too intrigued. So I'll probably try and just take a drive and see. But I don't know if there's checkpoints either, because I'm not going to be quarantining for 2 weeks. Can I freely go in and out?
I believe right now you can go in and out from Jersey to New York. I think from Connecticut to New York. I think there's this kind of it really is turning into Europe in a way where you can go from certain states without being stopped, but they're adding and deleting to like Rhode Island was added to the list of stay out, and then they took it off the list. And now they're every day it changes. So you got to check that out for sure. Yeah. I'm going to go in and I'm going to go to the cellar for the first time later this week and just have dinner and say hi. And it's just, it feels so weird and for people who are listening that maybe don't know much about, like maybe you're new to comedy, the cellar was like kind of the place that, you wanted to start working at, and when you got in there, it was a family event, and Oteil came to see me do a show at the Fat Black Pussycat, which is one of the 3 rooms where we could use as like a workout space. Yeah, and it was just like an honor to have him like there to say like, look, this is where I get to work with all these amazing people, and it really is just I miss that so much.
Well, it's the home base. Yeah, it's like whenever people would come into the city as tourists and ask where they should go. I was like, I don't know any other place other than the Cellar. I can't tell you where to go to dinner or what.
And go to the Olive Tree.
Yeah, there's a bar upstairs from the club. I mean, that's because you just live there, and that was like you got to see all the other comics and do all the other stuff. And I know I was I asked Mark Norman if he had gone by the Cellar, and he said no. He said it's too sad. It's like visiting your friend in a wheelchair. It's like they have the patio outside, but they're not. I'm going to wait till they're healthy again, and then I'll go. But I would like to just, if I can, I'm going to try and do it.
The audition at the Cellar, Oteil, is something that all Cellar comics like have their story of like when you did your audition and all of that. And I remember I think I had to follow Todd Barry. And, and you just try to do different cadences and whatever. Do you remember your audition there, Tom?
Yeah, vaguely. I think it was, it's always late. They always put you in a real tough spot, like on a Friday, like at midnight. And Esty would sit there in the doorway and judge you, and you waited, and because you're usually at a time when you don't have many other spots, you're not past at many other clubs, so I just had to like try and stay awake to be and then go on stage at midnight. And I think it went all right. I only had one audition there, and and it was enough to get me through. I was loud and fast enough to
you didn't run
survive it. Yeah, exactly. But watching other people go through it was all those years since was just brutal. Just watching someone who you are hoping will do well, and then they get up there, and for whatever reason, you only have like 4 minutes too. So if it's off in the beginning, you're just not going to get it back, and you just see everybody everyone like comes into the door to watch. Hey, and then they all slowly just walk away because they don't want to they don't want to make eye contact with the person when they come off the stage. It's brutal.
It's the worst.
Yeah, it's really so hard, but you got to go through it. I think in the beginning of any endeavor, it's just a test of how badly do you want it. Because it's when you look back, you're like, why would I have done all of that? Why would I drive to southern New Jersey for 3 hours for $20 just so I can get 10 minutes of stage time? Or why would I do any of it? And then it was because you wanted it that badly. It wasn't when you were in the middle of doing it, it didn't seem that crazy. Looking back now, you're like, there's no way I would do any of that. It's very uncomfortable.
Was music like that, Oteil? Like, was music like that? Where, I mean, we would go do like laundromat comedy shows and closed up yogurt shops and,
Yeah. I would tell my students would ask me, what's your advice for, staying in a career, I was like, there's no advice. Unless you have to do this, you're going to get weeded out because nobody would go through this crap. I mean, it's just the most ridiculous bullshit, Yeah. And you just go for more and more. Yes, I'll have thirds, please. It's just like, just do it. If you have to do it, you'll find out. And and even like along the way, like what we were talking about early, Mike, about like you said, you got to a certain point where you're like hosting, and you're like, man, I don't want to get stuck in this.
Yeah, I had a very important conversation with you, Tom, one night at the Village Underground. And to catch up listeners, when you're in the city, there's two types of shows. There's showcase shows, and then there's road shows where a headliner does an hour, a feature act does 20, and then a host does 10, 15. A showcase show, which is more common in New York City, is you got your host and they bring up 5, 6 comics. You get to do 10 to 12 minutes up front, maybe a minute or two at the most in between. And that's the show. And if you're good at hosting or if you want work, that's kind of what you do in the beginning. And when I passed at the Cellar, I told Esty I would love to host whenever you need me. And she used me right away and for a while. Yeah. And I started to get nervous that I was just getting good at hosting. And then I know you hosted there for quite a while. And I pulled you aside and asked you, could I talk to you about it? And you told me I was nervous. I was just getting good at one thing. And you're like, no. You're like, you can do so much with hosting.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really cool. Like you had good advice about just like, you know, you go in off someone else's flow and you can like make it your own and work on your own stuff. And it made you such a stronger comic, you said.
Oh yeah, for sure. There was definitely, you had to keep your eye on it because you could end up, because as you know, there's certain comics that never broke out of that, and they're never given other spots, and they're never, and so you had to be kind of conscious that you don't get stuck. But that was the secret, was that you were getting stronger than everybody else.
Yeah.
Because one of the illusions of stand-up is that it just seems like it's coming off the top of your head. It's so conversational. And in the beginning it's you off stage and then it's you on stage, and those things are pretty far apart. And hosting just brings them all together. You realize, I can talk just like that and be just as powerful as that. And that's what hosting, I think that was the biggest benefit. But you had it so easy. You got to host when there was no smoking in the clubs. I had to host from 9 o'clock till 2:30 in the morning in a smoke-filled room. I would, and that cellar is like the size of a shoebox.
Yeah.
And the people were just they had the audacity to have a non-smoking section in that room. It was like, this seat is smoking and that seat is non-smoking, and they would just light them up, and it was just filled, and just I'd spend years just in that smoke-filled hot box, and then you come along and it just all smells like daisies, and there's ventilation, and you didn't have to fight lung cancer.
I guess not. I didn't think about that.
I would come home and just peel my clothes off and just throw them away. Oh,
I remember waking up and my pillow just smelled like I was just too tired to shower after I got home from some college bar,
Yeah.
And I wake up and the whole pillow just smelled like cigarette smoke because my hair was, it's just like.
Yeah. Oh my God. It really, I mean, and it was so gross and so intense, but there was something so cool about it too, that when they stopped it, it was like, oh man, it'll never be the same.
Yeah, we can see the comic now.
Yeah, this is so sterile now. This isn't nightlife.
I never had that thought. I was like,
well, leave it up to comics to find the worst in everything.
It did ruin some places. There was that great Irish bar on it was probably around 18th. Probably like 18th and 7th. That great O'Malley's, or I forget what the Irish bar was.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's been there forever.
I can't remember the name.
And you walked in that place after this smoking ban, and it was like, this is a bar at the Holiday Inn in Duluth. What happened?
There's a lounge in the Titanic.
Yeah, no, people used to come here and wrap up their lives with real life-threatening vices.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does feel strange to like think about like jumping back on and doing a show like we used to do, where it was like, at the cellar, like Tom said, it's a tiny, tiny room. And it's like, I think about going to the bathroom in public and like eating in public and other people sneezing, like as an audience member, that's got to be frustrating. But no one thinks about the comic who's standing with a brick wall to his back with 100 people exhaling at you. We've got nowhere to go.
Yeah, I know. Tonight, the show that I'm doing, it's like the audience, it's in a studio space. And so it's going to be really spread out, and everyone's going to have their masks. And so it'll be okay. But it's everyone's going to have their own microphone. We're going to give them, literally, we have a sponsor who's going to give them a really nice mic, and they're going to come up and plug it in and do their set, and then take it home with them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But I know, it's weird. You look at everything now, and it's like, man, how did we even survive? Like, I mean, everything, just getting a cold, or I was outside yesterday and mosquitoes were like swarming around, and you cut your finger and you're leaking your vital fluids out of your hand, and it's just like we were under attack all the time. Like this is a tough place to survive. There's always something going on. A dog bites you, now you have rabies. What the hell is rabies? It's just another thing that's coming to get you. It's like, how did it's made you feel so much more vulnerable at this point.
Yeah. I think about the things like remember Oteil when you came into the city right before the garden show, the almonds, and you were just talking about like leaving the city is like the best part of going to the city.
I just like to hear insects. And I like elbow room. Too many people, but that's just me. I'm kind of a country boy at heart. You know, like when I started riding motorcycles, I would go farther and farther out into the country, and then I lived way down south, so it'd be very hot. So you'd have to ride from like 6 a.m. to probably 9:30 a.m. and then it was just too hot to ride. I got used to the sunrise and everything. Hearing the noises come as the light came up, just everything coming to life.
Amazing.
It was just good for my mental health. It really readjusted me. But then it had on the back end, it was hard because when I would go to New York, which I have to be there a lot. Yeah. To play there with the Allman Brothers every March at the Beacon Theater.
For 3 straight months at the weeks. Beacon.
Yeah. And then at the end of it, like the last probably 5, 6, 7 years of it, like at the 2-week mark, I would just hit my limit. I'd be like, I got to get out of here. Right. Everybody's rushing me and just like, you know, so it wasn't good for my mental health, which is a big theme of our podcast and trying to keep some balance mentally. And that's, which brings me, I really don't want to forget to talk about your book because that's kind of one of our themes, you know.
Well, let's go. But we'll come back to it. But let's go back to the motorcycle for a second.
Sure.
Because I rode forever too.
Really?
And and man, it was such a. And now, and I haven't since my kids. It's 18 years old, and I really haven't been riding since they were born. And and it just became too. I don't know. It's kind of like stand up in a way. It's like the further you get away from it, the more insane it seems that you did it. And it's like when you're riding all the time, it seems so natural. And then after 18 years, like, I don't know if I could do it again.
Cell phones. The cell phone thing is.
Cell phone thing, my instincts, my eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot at play there. If I lived in the country, I would do it. But man, that was those early mornings, you're so mentally tuned in just to survival, to have to do everything right. And then just having that experience, like those cold patches and hot patches that you go through, like you don't even, in a car, you're just blasting through. It's just, this is just Tuesday morning. But on a bike, it's just, all of a sudden, it's like 30 degrees colder just in this bend. And then the engine would just start to acclimate itself to those early mornings, just the amount of oxygen, and it would just kind of have a different hum. Oh my God, there was nothing.
And the smells
yeah.
too.
Oh my God, yeah.
And it was yin yang too, because at the beginning, I lived in Birmingham, Alabama for like 18 years, and the license plate says Alabama the Beautiful, and I was like, okay. But then when I got in the country, I realized that, wow, this is why they call it that. It's stunning, beautiful. And you're going through, I call it cows and curves. It's just like farm country.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you just smell all this. It could be lavender or sage or cow shit or a dead animal but it's like, in a car, you're oblivious to all of it, and you're not, like, even just the temperature change, the smells, the everything.
Yeah.
And it really is, it just realigns your brain from being in a city and on devices.
Yeah.
Now I'm starting to miss it. Shit.
Oh, completely. I know. The next stage is that you'll get a magazine and just start flipping through. What are they up to now? And then you're toast.
I have to let it go. Me and my wife both had motorcycles, and we sold them both.
Yeah.
And she got pregnant, and now we scuba dive. We're in Florida, so I get it out hanging out with gigantic fish and turtles and stuff. But
yeah, it's that thing. It's that mental focus. You need something that's going to really kind of like hone you in, and it kind of lets the rest of the world kind of evaporate. I bake bread now. That's my motorcycle.
Yeah. That bread looks so damn good.
Yeah.
And speaking of, Tom, with the, like, you got to let it evaporate. You and I both, I believe, do the same. We do transcendental meditation.
Oh yeah.
And I've been doing that for about 7 years now, 8 years. And boy, what a game changer.
Oh my God. I got up early today, earlier than you were. Like, sorry you had to get up early for this. It's like, that's all right. I just get up earlier, even earlier, so I can meditate before the day starts.
Mm-hmm.
And it changes everything. I mean, that is, yeah, it's hard to talk about because you can't even explain why.
Yeah.
It just the best way I'm able to explain it lately is it just takes your nervous system, which is something that's never gets worked out or relaxed or massaged. It just takes your nervous system and allows it to reboot. And that's what a gift, especially now when there's so much stress and so many outside influences and things that you think that, that are burning out your nervous system and making you crazy.
Mm-hmm.
20 minutes and all of a sudden 2 hours. It's not even like you come out of it and you're like, wow, I feel great. It's like you come out of it and then 2 hours later you just realize, oh, I feel great.
Yeah.
That happened to me with yoga because I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to lose weight. I was doing all this cardio and stuff and I lost it. But then when I started doing yoga, I lost even more weight and I quit doing the cardio. And I was like, why? And I realized that I didn't want to finish these big portions. Like, I would eat and then stop. But then I was still like, why? Why am I all of a sudden now aware that I'm full and then I should just stop right now? And so when I started thinking about it, I was like, controlled breathing. So then I was like, well, that's what meditation is about. And that's when I got into that. And man, like, I forgot to smoke weed one day and then didn't for like 3-4 days. I just like forgot.
Yeah.
Because I was already chilled out.
It's
and
amazing.
Like, okay, now, whoa.
Yeah.
It does something imperceptible that you don't know, but it's happening.
Absolutely. I know I did yoga for years and miss it. I haven't really been dialed in on it for a while, and it's probably the dumbest thing I could have done. It's really because anything that gives your brain is so busy. It's like a dog just like with a chew toy. It just needs your brain needs to work. It's going to go to work on something. Right. And there's so many things that can go to work on that are going to hurt you. It's going to just deal with the envy dog bone, or it's going to deal with weed, or it's going to deal with drinking, or it's going to deal with women. It's going to go to work on something. So all these things, the bike, meditation, bread, yoga, all that stuff is giving nice dog bones to your brain. It's like, let it chew on those, because the return is going to be so much better. It's weird. It's a very strange thing.
Well, it's hard in our culture because it's such a holic culture, like, and so if you turn it to work, then, embrace the hustle. So we're like, yeah, work. And you get more money, more work, more money. Yeah. But something like the pandemic happens and it just, bam, forces you to like deal with your shit. Mm-hmm. And that's tough because now you're forced, unless you're one of these people that works on your computer and you could just keep being a workaholic. Yeah. But even so, like at home, you're dealing with other things that you don't have to deal with. It kind of boxes you in. And so it's a challenge for people's mental health nowadays. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And even if you are a workaholic, which I kind of am, it was hard. It's still hard during this period because the quiet little thing in the back of your head always is that your life is threatened. You kind of feel like, well, is this thing going to get me? There's the protective instinct of your being, of that there's something real out there that's actually could attack me and my loved ones. Mm-hmm. So even if you're a workaholic, it's hard to focus on that when your brain is figuring out that puzzle of like, how do we survive?
The poison dog bone is always there. You don't know which one it is.
Yeah. And it's useful too. You need to be alert about that stuff, but you also, like you said before, you need that balance.
the balance for sure.
It's very interesting too. Once you find it, you're kind of like, oh my God, this was here the whole time. I've wasted this many years, like not like an imperfect fashion of trying to find like something wrong with everything. Feeling good, you find a way to feel bad about feeling good sometimes, and you're like,
yeah.
shit.
Well, it's weird because like it's almost like something else happens where your subconscious is just ready for it, because I preach it all the time and tell people you should just go to TM, and my wife included, and even my kids, and they just don't want it. They like think they do and then never act on it. So it's like something has to kind of click. I don't know if you're in control of it or not, but something you have to be kind of accepting.
Yeah.
Ready for it in a way.
And it's kind of sick and tired of being sick and tired thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that's it. You got to get to that point.
Well, and it's like too, like with quitting cigarettes, it's like you finally get to that point where you have almost your last cigarette and you're like, I think I'm getting ready to be done with this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just, you've tried a million times to quit and you're like, tomorrow, one more pack. I got to go on the road, whatever,
Yeah.
And then you finally just decide. And with TM, it was this kind of thing. My wife got it for me as a gift. And then you do you learn about it, you get taught. And then coming out of it, it was like, this is something that I feel like, it's not like I was taught anything. It was more, I was taught it was like the opposite. I was like untaught to like hate myself. You know what I mean? And it was just kind of like, it untied the knot and just let things flow easier. And I was like, damn, this feels good to dissolve every day, twice a day, and not be screaming at myself,
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. No, it's almost like you're shown something.
Yeah. Something's revealed to you. You get out of the silence. You just realize it's like, you could change your mind by just realizing like, hey, why do I keep doing that? Like, why do I not do that? It's just, that's why I love that whole thing about, you're doing great. It's so encouraging. That's always what I need to hear. I keep trying to tell myself that, just be like, you're doing great, man.
Yeah, I know. When I wrote the title of the book, it was "You're Doing Great and Other Reasons to Stay Alive."
Yeah, I love that.
And at the time, I thought I was just being witty. I thought I was just being funny. And then I started like doing all these interviews on the virtual book tour for it, and people were literally like, okay, it's funny and stuff, but am I doing okay? Am I doing great? Is it all going to be all right? It's like, yes, you are. You just need to kind of recalibrate. The whole book is just lower your expectations. Just low, we live this life where you think everything's supposed to be this insane, money-filled party. And it's like, no, like all those things we were talking about, just going through a road and smelling lavender, or just, breathing, or just spending a day at home with your wife. Like those are these things. That's it. But you lose track of that. And when you realize that those are the things, you are doing great. You're just not aware of it.
Yeah. It's like, first of all, shoot your TV, because that's where you get all the money-filled party, pool filled with girls with,
Yeah, and your social media.
Yeah, it's just like, come on, man. One of my favorite expressions, especially since I'm a later age father, is "these are the days."
Yeah.
Because when Nigel's growing so fast, and all those cliches, and Kavi too now already, just since we brought her, she's only been home 9 months.
Wow.
And it's just racing by. I think it hurts my wife. She feels like it's going too fast, but because I'm older, I'm like, I know this is going to happen. I'm just going to savor every friggin' second to the maximum, because gone,
In a second. I've been saying that in my act, where I say to the people, I don't know you at all. I've never met any of you, and I'm telling you, you're doing great. I said, I'll go one better. You're peaking right now. And you'll get groans. You'll have people like, oh no, wow. And it's like, no, I'm not kidding, because this is it. This is it, guys. These are the good times. You have a little money in your pocket. You're healthy. You can come to this silly ass show. I said, in the not too far distant future, people can ask you to do something, and your one question is going to be, are there stairs? And if there are, you're not going.
Yeah.
And that's coming quick. That's coming real quick.
Yeah.
This is it. So like during that time, like during this moment, why would you spend it watching cable news and getting outraged about something you can't control? Why would you spend it diverting your attention to these horrible people who don't know you and don't care about you? Like, why? This is it. This is the good chunk. And, so you're not on a private jet. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything.
You wouldn't be enjoying it if
been
you
on
were
them.
on a private jet.
Yeah.
I've been on the private jets, and it doesn't help. I know plenty of people that had private jets that kill themselves.
Right. That's right.
I mean, it doesn't do anything.
It doesn't do anything. You're much better in figuring out why this cup of coffee is so good.
Yeah.
And look, that's the other thing. I've been kind of conscious of. We talk about all these things. You have to appreciate it. And you have to do all this, but it doesn't mean you walk around all day long like, wow, life is precious. Wow, every single second is. If you literally give yourself 5-10 minutes of that during the day, just to get off the freeway for a second and just be like, take a breath and be like, all right, as much as I have to keep going, as much as I have to race, as much as I am okay, this is okay. This is, just give yourself that little beat of being grateful. It's enough for the rest of the day. Like, you've done your work. That you don't have to walk around and think you've got to be a Buddhist monk about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's very
Sometimes
true.
it's as simple for me as just when I get sick,
Mhm.
and you just feel like shit. And I'm just like, remember this, and you're healthy, and you
Yeah.
just normal, like how great
Yeah.
normal is, because it's not this.
Yeah. When you can swallow again.
Well, I always say,
Yeah.
Otila and I are always talking about how like everyone's like trying to peel back layers of the onion to get deeper and deeper, when it's just like, put the layers back on and realize it's an onion. Like, everything doesn't need to be so like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, just get back
Right.
to like looking at things from like more of a common sense standpoint and be like, it's okay. Like you're
Yeah.
saying, I mean,
Right.
anxiety for me, the parachute or the e-brake or whatever on anxiety was, I could always remind myself when I was feeling anxious, I'm like, I'm making this up. This is fake.
Right.
It's in my head. And
Yeah.
then Corona hits and all of this. And then it's like, oh no, like we're all in that now, and there was some weird feeling of camaraderie with the rest of the universe or the rest of the earth, that we're all going through this together. Like, we're not alone. Like, you're not alone in going through this. And it was awful, but also good, where it was like, I don't have to beat myself up so much every day. Like I'm still going to be me scared about coronavirus. Like you were saying, you don't walk around every day going like everything's roses and Buddhist monk, but it's like, yeah, things suck, but that's part of it.
Right. Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's
It's a
just
very different feeling when you spend your whole life scared of everything.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I know. It really is. But it's such a strange, and what's weird is that you never really wrestle it all to the ground. You have to be, that's why like these conversations and reading stuff, and you constantly have to be reminded of this stuff. That's why when you get together with other musicians or other comedians, and you start talking about all those, you talk about the same stuff all the time. It's the same stories, about performing or the road or the balancing your family, and you're just learning it all the time. You constantly have to hear it. I've gotten to a point now where people are like, did I tell you the story? I'm like, tell it again.
Yeah, totally.
Tell it again.
It's better than hearing my own story.
Yeah, and you need to relearn it all the time.
Yeah.
You do. It's the human condition, I think it all gets back to what you said earlier, which is acceptance. Like, if I consider myself a deist, but not like a believer in religion. But if I could boil down my practical religion, it would be radical acceptance.
Mhm.
Because if you just accept, it's like you see these couples that stay together for 60, 70 years. I mean, when you talk to them, they tell you, like, our expectations weren't what yours are. Like, we have all this tons of money and it's a party all the time. And it's always going to be the honeymoon phase of our sex life. It's like, we had much more realistic expectations.
Yeah.
We'd be happier on the back end. And
Oh, absolutely.
You realize, okay.
Yeah.
Have a little ugly in there.
Yeah. Right. I don't understand. Yeah. these ideas like, oh, you should be with a supermodel and you should be like, this should be like the most romantic thing every minute of the. No, get somebody about your size and go to work.
Exactly.
That's going to be happy.
A one-sentence book on relationships.
Yeah.
Get someone about your size and go to work. The end.
That's it. Yeah.
Forward by Colin Quinn.
Right.
And this isn't a commercial for transcendental meditation, but the thing that they say that I love, and I said this earlier to you, Oteil, that change begins within. That's the thing I love so much. It's so simple.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, yeah, get your shit straight, and then you can be who the world needs you to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, fix yourself, and then that's the part I like about it a lot. It's very simple.
Yeah,
you know, it's not a lot
totally
of rules.
Simple. No, that's what I was saying before. That's kind of the mystery for me about it, is that there's really it's so effortless. Once you learn how to do it, it's so much easier than any of the kind of meditation I had learned about, like from books in college and all these other ways of like concentrating on different things. It's the opposite of that. It's letting it just kind of happen. And that's the weird contradiction for me, is that it's so easy but so effective.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is the kind of the mystery of it.
I heard this one a teacher that was doing Vipassana meditation, and the first part of it's called Anapana, which is the only part I ever got through.
Yeah.
But he just said this one thing. I listened to all these hours of him talking, but he said this one thing. He said, if you take a glass of water and you hold it in your hand, the water will never become still, no matter how still you try to be. But if you put the glass down within a short time, it's going to be completely still. And I was like, wow. So just bring your attention back to breathing through your nose when your mind goes off leash and starts running, thinking all stuff. Bring it back.
Yeah.
And then when I finally became still, it was just like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Breakthrough.
And it's also like this morning when I was doing it, I wasn't that still. I was pretty busy.
It is what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you don't beat yourself up about it. If you don't not every day you're going to be there. That's okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
He said, if you fall asleep, I guess you needed sleep.
Right. Yeah. Ta-da.
Totally.
It's not a failure. It was a success. You got the sleepiness,
Yeah.
Always my favorite. Tom, I know you have to go, but can you tell everybody where they could find your book? And thank you so much for spending time with us. I know you need to boogie.
Yeah, no, this was great. My book is You're Doing Great and Other Reasons to Stay Alive. And also my Netflix special is the same theme. It's You're Doing Great. Is streaming on Netflix now. The book is everywhere. It's on Amazon and stuff. If you just go to tompapa.com, that links to all things, my Breaking Bread podcast and the radio show and the book and all of that. But the book just came out, and the best part is seeing people pick it up and like sending pictures of them holding it all around the world and be like, hey, your book's here now. It's like, all right, you are doing great.
I was honored to do your radio show with you at the VU before this whole thing ended. And it was a great show, and I miss you, and it's great to chat with you, and stay safe.
Yeah, we'll be back, and we'll be busy, and we won't remember any of this.
Let's hope. So great to meet you, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
so
you
much.
too. Can't wait to see you at the
everybody.
Beacon and know that you're losing your mind.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Check out everything Tom Papa, and we'll see you next week on Comes the Time.
See you guys.